You are watching Influence Media, PSI TV, the Netflix of biz brands.
Work-life imbalance. This is one of the insecurities that causes leaders to either not show up at all or show up, but they don't shine. Let's dive in. There was a story of a young professional, and he was working hard at the top of his game. And because he was so successful, he caught the eye of the young lady that he really had an interest in. And of course, she was attracted to him, especially because he looked like he was going places. So they get married. After the honeymoon, life settles in, and he gets back to work as usual. Now, after a while, he's making so much money, he gives his wife the opportunity to quit working if she wants to, and she does. And she stays home and she has the kids. And after a while, she gets absolutely bored. Bored because she's not going off to work anymore. Bored because she's got the money, she can stay home. Bored because her husband is not available. He comes home to demands on his time and challenges as to why he wasn't more available. And after a very short while, his life feels very chaotic. It leads to a spiral of him staying later and later at the office, and for her getting angrier and angrier and more distant and more silent. This leads to an absolute chaos. This work-life imbalance is just crazy for him, and his life spirals out, and it begins to affect his work. For many leaders, this is one of the insecurities that stops you in your tracks from either showing up at all or showing up and shining. You are pushing for success. You're working hard, but it's coming at a cost of your sanity, a cost of your family. And as you try to do this balancing act, you find that you do not success in either one. The success you had at work is slipping away. The success you have at home feels non-existent. This is going to impact you, how you show up at work, how you show up in life. This work-life balance is the conversation that many have as they rise up in the ranks. When you're a leader and you just don't get to turn it off, what do you do? This is part 5 in our 5-part series on leader insecurities that stop us from either showing up at all or showing up and shining. Part 1 was the pretender, or the imposter syndrome, if you will. Part 2 was the fear of failure. Part 3 was that harsh inner critic. Part 4 was how body image impacted our willingness to show up and shine. And today we are looking at that imbalanced life, that chaotic life that comes with that work-life balance question. We're going to look at a story, what the Bible says, what research says, and throughout this 5-part series, we have been giving you strategies to increase your discovery of your brand and of you and your offer. This is a weekly show that we have every Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Thank you for joining us live or later. Trudy Beerman here, host of PSI TV. I'm also a doctoral candidate working on my research in influential reach, and that absolutely contributes to this conversation. Let's see what this Jordan Peterson video has to say about why successful people are lonely. I love this quote. When nobody wakes you up in the morning, and when nobody waits for you at night, and when you can do whatever you want, what do you call it? Freedom or loneliness?
In your lab all the time, you're working 70 hours a week or 80 hours a week. You're smart, you're dedicated, you're unidimensional. And that's how you get to beat all the other people who are doing that. It's the only way. But the problem is you don't get a life.
The problem is you don't get a life. When you have to choose between success or a life, how do you choose? How do you choose? So I'm going to be celebrating my 25th wedding anniversary with my husband. And before we got married, I would have had a life that many would have dreamed about. I traveled for my job. I was always on a plane, always in a beautiful hotel. I was had a nice apartment. Everybody would have thought I was successful and I was happy and everything was hunky-dory. The truth is, one more night in a lonely hotel, one more dinner by myself, it was miserable. It was completely miserable. And many would have wanted to trade their life for mine. And I am the happiest ever right now compared to back then. So when you're chasing success at the cost of your family, which do you choose? Because for most people, you're working for your family. You're working because of your family. Your family is the driving force. But if that success, so that you can be successful for your family, also costs your family, what do? This is the work-life balance that people are always talking about. So here's peer-reviewed research on work-life balance, and it pointed out a couple things that I really want to show you. Technology has long been vaunted as holding the potential to either improve working lives or intensify their degradation. My son is a lawyer, and a lot of times he will get called late at night on his days off to do something because we're simply an email away or a text away. So technology can either improve your life or it could be claimed to be causing an intensification of the degradation of your life. There has been a growing focus in recent decades on the possibilities and threats that new technology might bring specifically for work-life balance matters, and with the growth of gig or platform work, stimulate equally split forecasts on the opportunities offered. But when it comes to academic research, there is little attention to work-life balance in the literature. Now, this whole broad parameter of gig work and its implication for society is important because a lot of my viewers are entrepreneurs or self-employed freelancers, or because you have your own business, you're working remotely from whatever, and that remote use of technology can either improve your life or intensify the degradation of it. This research continues to say the concept itself soon grew contentious. So they're having this discussion. The discussion grew contentious. Does life, and this is a definition issue, does life include only family? What about friends and community too? Is balance a useful analogy, or are reconciliation, articulation, interference, strain, or other terms better employed to link the two domains together? More on that later. Now, when it came to the work-life balance conversation, the needs of women living in a heterosexual couple and with young children were the heaviest focus. And they concluded that firms need their HR policies to broaden out the work-life balance focus to respond to the needs of the full and increasing diverse workforce. So this work-life balance is a huge issue. It is being looked at in academic arenas. It is a conversation in HR conferences. This is a huge question because it is affecting how leaders show up or even how workers show up. Now, the Bible does have something to say about this. Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. It's titled A Time for Everything. Of course, that almost gives you the answer right there. For everything, there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. I'm not going to read all of it, but a time to be born and a time to die. A time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. A time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. You can read all of it yourself. The point here is there's a time for everything. And I truly believe that the answer to this work-life balance is hidden right here in this text, that there really is a time for everything. So if you look at this picture, this is a picture of a photographer looking through a lens. And when you look through the lens, you have clarity, but the sphere of view is very tiny. Everything around the lens is blurry. This is what it looks like when you do it with a time for everything. So I believe this imbalance will be okay for a season. For a season. There's a time for everything. And sometimes there really is a time to focus in on work. And then there is a time for play. I think the challenge for many of us business owners, many of us leaders, is we need to be fully present to either one. This is where the problem is coming in, because you're trying to straddle the fence and have one foot in both domains, and you're not doing any of them well. We need to have this kind of focus, like the camera lens. We zero in on this tiny area of life. We focus in for a season. You know, I'm going through school right now, and there are lots of things in my life that are technically on hold that my husband has had to pick up and help me with, or my kids have had to rock back on them for things. But this is for a season. This is going to end. And so this focus is just for a time. And we're all agreeing to deal with, maybe the house is not as tidy, or maybe I missed cooking a meal that one particular day. And so we are dealing with this because this is for a season. But when you focus in for that season, you will have excellence in that thing. But you have to have an agreement with the family. Hey, I'm going to focus in for 90 days. I'm going to focus in for, so I make a real point of making my weekends be available for my family. I am very focused Monday through Friday, but on the weekends, I am very present as much as possible, unless there is a paper due, which is very rare. But, I try to be available 100% for my family on the weekend. So we really need to look at this chaos and imbalance and this conversation about work-life balance. Personally, I don't really think work-life balance makes sense. Doesn't make sense to me. I don't think balance makes sense. What I think is seasons and priorities. So I think that this is just me speaking now. I mean, this is my idea of what I think will work. It certainly works for me, where instead of trying to create this balance and we're, rocking on this thing and having one foot in here and one foot there, that we actually focus in on the priority, be 100% present. So, for example, if you were able to see my calendar, my work calendar, I block off every morning till 11:30 for my deep work. That is focused time. I don't read emails. I don't take appointments. From the morning I wake up till 11:30, that is focused for, that's when I'm creating my videos. That's when I'm working on my book. That's when I may even be doing homework, but it's very focused work. My calendar becomes available for my clients after 11:30 and until 5. So I am very present to whatever the task is that I'm on. So I'm very present, and I am not balancing. I'm not trying to multitask. That doesn't work for me. I focus on priorities. And so I think that that is the better answer. I would love for you to chime in. Tell me what you think, because research is not fully giving us good examples. And the academic domain realizes there's very little research speaking to this topic. In other words, there is no academic answer yet. But a lot of you have found your ways of coping. And if you're trying to do the balancing thing, how is that working for you? I know it doesn't work for me. Here's what Ben Shapiro has to say. Now, I don't know what your views are on him. I just thought that this was relevant to the conversation. So let me play this clip.
My kids wake me up every morning at like 6 a.m. and I get up and I make breakfast for them. I get them dressed. I get them ready for the day. I leave the house at like 7:45 because that's basically when they leave the house for school. I go into the show. I try to get everything done between the window 7:45 a.m. and 3:30 p.m., which is when they get out from school. Very often, I'm the one who picks them up from school. I do not work from the time I pick them up from school to the time they go to bed, which right now is about 7:30. My wife doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to now, so she picks up a lot of that slack. But my goal is to basically between 3:30 and 7:30, I'm almost entirely at their disposal.
He's almost entirely at their disposal. And Ben Shapiro, like him or not, he is very successful. He's got, he just made a rap about the fact that his wallet is fat. So this is another example of a successful person who is using the strategy of priorities and being fully present to whatever is the priority of the moment. When it's work, and when it's family, it's family. That's what works for Ben Shapiro. That's what works for me. I don't know about you, but I can tell you it is a conversation worth having, because the answer is not crystal clear yet, at least not in the academic arena. At the end of it all, the reason why I'm doing this series is to help leaders reframe their situation. Instead of focusing in on these insecurities that block us from showing up, or showing up at all, or showing up and shining, we need to reframe these. We need to look at them from a different perspective. So go back and watch the series if you haven't already. The goal of this is for you to show up and shine. Show up and shine, and put the competition to rest. The Bible says that we are the light of the world, and we should not be hidden. Do not hide. I know these insecurities will make us want to hide. I know, because they've made me want to hide. So maybe I'm just projecting. I don't know. Maybe I'm just projecting. But since I have suffered from them, I know I'm not alone. And there are many of you who have suffered from these same situations or are suffering with them now. But let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. That means you should have some good works, and you should not be hiding them. But when you do get the glory and the accolades, be sure to remember that everything we have and everything we are capable of doing is a gift from above. Your next step, should you choose to take it, is to do nothing at all. You can do nothing at all and life remains the same. How is that working for you? Or you can work to become a celebrity CEO. That's what we're focusing on here over at PSI TV. We are focusing on equipping you to become a celebrity CEO, showing up and shining. That way, you're going to be the one people want to hear from, the first name that comes to mind for the thing that you do, and be recognized by people you don't even know. And if you do all these things, especially all the things we discussed in this 5-part series, you will find that you're gaining a brand elevation advantage. Trudy Beerman here. Thank you for watching Live or Later. I'm super simple to find, and I do look forward to connecting with you.